The 1980s, a decade of bold designs, roaring engines, and machines that broke every rule. While the world was obsessed with speed, muscle cars, jet planes, and heavy metal, something equally wild was happening out on the farms. Tractor manufacturers, from America to Europe, were in a silent arms race, not for style, but for raw, unstoppable power. It was the era when horsepower became an obsession, and engineers built machines that farmers couldn't even believe existed. Some of these tractors were too powerful, too expensive, or too far ahead of what the world was ready for. But one thing's for sure, these weren't just tractors. They were beasts forged from steel and ambition. So today, we're rolling back in time to the 1980s to meet 10 tractors that were too powerful for their time. Machines that shook the ground and changed farming forever. Number 1. John Deere 8850. When John Deere released the 8850 in 1982, it wasn't just making another tractor, it was declaring war on mediocrity. This was John Deere's most powerful 4WD tractor ever built up to that time. A true monster with a 955 cubic inch V8 diesel engine that produced a jaw-dropping 370 horsepower. Yes, a V8 engine in a tractor. This wasn't your average farm machine. This was a powerhouse designed to dominate massive American wheat fields. The 8850 was built for one thing: brute pulling power. With its massive frame, 30,000-pound weight, and 4 equal-sized drive tires, it could drag 12 bottom plows through tough Midwestern soil without breaking a sweat. But it wasn't just about power, it was about innovation. The 8850 featured full-time 4WD, a 16-speed power-shift transmission, and an enormous cooling system to handle that wild V8 engine. Farmers had never seen anything like it. When the 8850 thundered to life, the ground shook. But as powerful as it was, it came at a cost. The 8850 was expensive, thirsty, and heavy. Its complex engine was difficult to maintain, and many farmers found it too much for their needs. Still, for those who ran it, it was unforgettable. Even today, the John Deere 8850 stands as a symbol of the 1980s horsepower madness. A tractor that didn't just plow fields, it conquered them. Number 2. Case 4994. In 1984, Case introduced something that looked more like a tank than a farm machine. The Case 4994, one of the last and most powerful members of the legendary Case 90 series. Under its long, aggressive hood was a 14.6-liter 6-cylinder diesel engine, pushing out a wild 400 horsepower. At a time when most tractors barely touched 150. It was built to compete with the giants from John Deere and Versatile, and it did that with ease. The 4994 featured articulated steering, dual rear wheels, and hydraulic steering control, giving it incredible stability and power in deep fields. Farmers quickly realized this was not a tractor for small jobs. It was built for open land, for pulling massive plows, air seeders, and cultivators across thousands of acres. It was also built with luxury in mind. The operator's cab was insulated and air-conditioned, offering a surprisingly comfortable ride for such a beast. But like many 1980s power monsters, the 4994 was ahead of its time, and sometimes too far. Its size, price, and maintenance costs scared off smaller farms, and it sold in limited numbers. Still, for those who owned one, it became a badge of honor, a symbol that they farmed big and meant business. The Case 4994 remains one of the most extreme American tractors of its era, a piece of iron that perfectly captured the 1980s spirit of go big or go home. Number 3. Versatile 1150. In the world of big tractors, Versatile from Canada was already a legend. But in 1981, they decided to push the limits of what was possible and gave the world the Versatile 1150. This tractor wasn't just powerful, it was terrifying. Powered by a 19-liter Cummins KTA 1150 V8 diesel, it unleashed 470 horsepower, making it one of the most powerful production tractors ever built in its time. It weighed over 32,000 pounds, had four-wheel drive articulation, and could pull implements that no other tractor could touch. The versatile 1150 wasn't built for the average farm. It was designed for massive wheat operations in Canada and the US, where hundreds of acres needed to be tilled in a single pass. But the real shock was how durable it was. Despite its monstrous size, the 1150's engineering was surprisingly simple, robust, easy to maintain, and dependable. Farmers who ran one said it could move mountains, and they weren't exaggerating. Even by today's standards, the 1150's performance remains jaw-dropping. It could easily pull 70-foot air seeders or 16-bottom plows all day long. It wasn't economical, it wasn't subtle, but it didn't care. It existed for one reason: to prove that more power was always possible. The versatile 1150, the Canadian giant that redefined brute force in agriculture. Number 4. Steiger Panther PTA 325. The 1980s were Steiger's golden years, when these big green machines ruled the American plains. Among them, one model stood out for its perfect mix of balance, strength, and engineering brilliance: the Steiger Panther PTA 325. Released in 1983, this beast came equipped with a 14-liter Cummins NTC 855 turbo diesel, producing up to 325 horsepower. That kind of muscle made it one of the most powerful tractors of the early 80s, and it quickly became a favorite among large-scale farmers. But it wasn't just about horsepower, it was about how Steiger delivered it. The Panther PTA 325 had a power-shift transmission, 4WD articulation, and a reputation for pulling anything that dared to resist. It had strength, endurance, and that iconic Steiger toughness, simple to maintain, brutally reliable, and designed to outlive its operator. Its cab was spacious, sound-insulated, and surprisingly ergonomic, showing that even in the 1980s, power and comfort could coexist. Farmers said it felt like driving a tank across the fields, and honestly, that's exactly what it was, a tank disguised as a tractor. Many of these machines are still running today, proving just how overbuilt they were. The Steiger Panther PTA 325 was a tractor that didn't just perform, it dominated. Too powerful? Maybe. But in the 1980s, that's exactly what farmers wanted to be. Number 5. Ford FW60. When Ford joined the 4WD tractor game, it didn't play small. In 1981, it unleashed the Ford FW60, a blue monster that proved Ford could go toe-to-toe with any giant. The FW60 packed a 14-liter Cummins 6-cylinder turbo diesel, delivering 375 horsepower of pure torque. That engine was so powerful that it turned heads and shook the ground beneath it. Designed for massive open fields in North America, the FW60 was all muscle and minimal nonsense. It featured an articulated frame, dual-wheel setup, and constant four-wheel drive, making it nearly unstoppable in muddy or heavy soil. But Ford didn't just make it strong, it made it smooth. The cab had improved soundproofing, suspension seating, and excellent visibility, luxuries for the era. The FW60 could pull huge cultivators, chisel plows, and grain drills that smaller tractors could only dream of moving. In the right hands, it could turn thousands of acres of land in a single season, faster and more efficiently than anything Ford had ever produced. It wasn't just a tractor, it was a blue bulldozer in disguise. Even today, collectors and large-scale operators love the FW60 for its simple mechanics and unshakable reliability. It was Ford's declaration that power has no limits, and in the 1980s, that message couldn't have been louder. Number 6. International Harvester 748080. The International Harvester 7488, introduced in 1984, wasn't just powerful, it was different. This tractor shocked everyone with its radical front and rear drive system. Both axles were powered, giving it true 4WD capability unlike anything else on the market. Under the hood, it packed a 466 cubic inch 6-cylinder turbo diesel engine, pushing up to 250 horsepower. But the real magic was its handling. Thanks to the center pivot steering and dual drive axles, it could climb, turn, and pull with unmatched stability. Our engineers designed it to be the next step in tractor evolution. Compact but powerful, maneuverable but mighty. Unfortunately, the timing couldn't have been worse. The farm economy crashed in the mid-1980s, and IH was already facing financial collapse. Only around 25 units of the 7488 were ever built. But those who saw it in action never forgot it. It could pull like a giant, but drive like a small tractor. The 7488 became a legend not because of its success, but because it represented what could have been. It was too powerful, too innovative, and too far ahead of its time. Today, it's one of the rarest and most collectible tractors ever made. A red relic from the era when IH dared to dream bigger than anyone else. Number 7. Big Bud 4550. When you say too powerful, you can't skip the Big Buds, and the Big Bud 450 from the 1980s was the very definition of excess. Built in Montana, the Big Bud 450 was a machine designed for one purpose: to dominate. It packed a 19-liter Cummins engine, producing up to 450 horsepower, with torque so immense it could rip through the hardest clay soils like butter. Weighing close to 40,000 pounds, it was one of the heaviest tractors of its decade. But despite its size, it was remarkably balanced and easy to handle, thanks to its articulated frame and massive dual tires. The Big Bud 450 was a limited production machine. Only the largest farms could afford or even use it properly. But for those who did, it became a legend. It could pull plows, air drills, and cultivators that were nearly twice the size of what most tractors could handle. Farmers often joked that if you got stuck with a Big Bud, you'd need another Big Bud to pull it out. Even now, decades later, many 450s are still in use, proof of how overbuilt they were. The Big Bud 450 wasn't designed for efficiency, it was designed for glory. It was the living embodiment of the 1980s spirit. Bigger, louder, stronger. Number 8. Fiat 180/90 Turbo. While America built brute strength, Italy built elegance with muscle. And nothing proved that better than the Fiat 180/90 Turbo. Released in 1984, this Italian masterpiece packed a 6-cylinder, 8.1-liter turbo diesel engine, delivering 180 horsepower. But its torque and agility made it feel even more powerful. Unlike most big tractors of its time, the 180/90 wasn't just strong, it was beautifully engineered. Its cab was ergonomic, its gearbox was smooth, and its acceleration was thrilling. European farmers loved it for its versatility. It could handle everything from heavy plowing to road transport with unmatched stability. But what made it truly ahead of its time was its turbocharged engine and advanced hydraulic lift system, innovations that would later become standard across Europe. The 180/90 earned the nickname, the Orange Rocket, for its speed and pulling power. And even now, decades later, it remains a cult favorite among collectors and tractor pullers. The Fiat 180/90 Turbo was proof that a tractor could be both beautiful and brutal. An Italian stallion that roared across the fields of Europe long before anyone else dared to dream that big. Number 9. Massey Ferguson 4880. When Massey Ferguson entered the 4WD game, it went all in with the 4880, a powerhouse that combined refinement with unstoppable force. Launched in 1982, it featured a 14-liter Cummins diesel producing 375 horsepower, paired with a full-time 4WD articulation system. It was built to compete with the big boys, John Deere, Versatile, and Steiger, and it did so with grace. The 4880 was praised for its comfort, reliability, and fuel efficiency. Its cab was quieter and more advanced than most competitors, and its controls were intuitive, something farmers really appreciated after 12-hour days in the field. But when it came to raw pulling power, it was no slouch. It could haul 60-foot drills and deep plows through wet soil without hesitation. It didn't break down easily, and its Cummins heart meant it ran smoothly even after thousands of hours. The MF4880 may not have been the loudest or flashiest tractor of the 1980s, but it was one of the most complete. It was the quiet giant, proof that true power doesn't always need to shout. Number 10. Allis-Chalmers 8550. And finally, we end with a legend. The Allis-Chalmers 8550, known simply as the Beast. Released in 1981, this was Allis-Chalmers' biggest and most powerful tractor ever. A monstrous 12-cylinder, 731 cubic inch diesel engine roaring with 370 horsepower. It looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Long hood, massive tires, and a cab that towered over the fields. The 8550 had everything: 4WD articulation, power director transmission, and the kind of torque that could tear stumps out of the ground. Farmers called it the land crusher. But it came at the wrong time. The farm crisis of the 1980s made such machines unaffordable, and production was limited. Still, those who owned one will tell you there was nothing else like it. The 8550 marked the end of an era for Allis-Chalmers, a final roar before the company faded from the tractor world. But what a roar it was! Even today, collectors and enthusiasts see it as one of the most iconic and overbuilt tractors ever made. A machine that was too powerful, too ambitious, and too unforgettable for its time. The 1980s were wild. A decade when engineers stopped asking, "Can we?" and started saying, "Let's do it." These tractors weren't just tools. They were statements. Monuments of horsepower, courage, and pure mechanical madness. From the roaring big buds of America to the sleek Fiats of Europe, every one of these machines pushed the limits of what farming could be. They were expensive, extreme, and sometimes impractical. But they represented a time when dreams were made of diesel and determination. And that's why we still remember them today. Because these weren't just tractors, they were legends of power. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.